So when I was 8 years old, I picked up my first little toy keyboard. It came with a little book, and I learned how to play little simple jingles, melodies mainly. The theme song from MASH, stuff like that. When I was 9 years old, my mom had been working for this real estate tycoon, cleaning his houses and things like that. And we moved to the 6th Hilton hotel ever built in the United States in Plainview, Texas. We moved up there and had a loft place up on the 2nd floor. There was no kids to play with or anything, so my friends were all the service guys, and people like Walter, the elevator man, was my buddy, the barbershop guy down below. And I would walk around downtown Plainview and walk into these businesses and ask them, hey, can I run some errands for you, or throw out your garbage, or, make some money somehow, One day I walk in this secondhand store, ask this guy, hey, can I run some errands for you, or, go get your newspaper for you, or whatever, And he had all these guitars all over. Drums, violins, cellos, horns, all these instruments, had his little section of the store just for music stuff. And next thing you know, he's teaching me how to play Fire by Jimi Hendrix. I mean, my little fingers don't even want to do the chords. I mean, and these are bar chords and power chords and quick chord changes, And so that was my introduction to the guitar. Of course, we moved away, and I didn't stick with it. We had a high school band come up and play for us. I really got inspired by the drummer, so I started playing drums, and I played the drums for the next 5 years, until I was like, 13, 14, 15, right in there, And so I eventually came back to the guitar. And fast forward 30 years later, I'm reminiscing with people on this forum in Plainview, Texas, There he is, Robin Brown. So we start talking again, and I said, man, you really got some good stuff here that people really need to hear. So a couple months ago, I was down visiting family, and I took a little road trip out to Matador County into a undisclosed location and sit down and talk about some of these songs. Robert Robin Brown, 1964, worked as a musician in Canyon, Texas, started a country rock band, the West Winds. In 65, he founded the Gemini 5 rock band in Canyon. During that time, he recorded in Clovis, New Mexico with noted singer Dale Gardner and Carol Reams of Amarillo. Worked with Norman Petty, an engineer. Recorded at Checkmate Studio in Amarillo with Mike and Eddie Poole of Canyon. 66 and 67, recorded in Larry Cox's studio in Amarillo with Max Barton. 1970, recorded in Clovis, New Mexico, Supernatural Man. In 1971, he was in Nashville working with his demos and met Tommy Alsop. And of course, you know that Tommy Alsop is the guy that lost the coin toss with Ritchie Valens. And that night, Ritchie Valens took that fateful flight with Buddy Holly. In 73, he worked in Amarillo and wrote the song Sleepless Night with You. That was recorded at Billy Stoll's studio. Cheryl Dyson sang on that. She is the daughter of the famous Nashville bassist Bobby Dyson. In 79, He recorded a gospel track, Telling My Friends, that was recorded by Max Barton at Don Caldwell Studios. The Maines brothers provided the backup for that. In 1980, in Amarillo, Texas, the Garrett Brothers Band of Billings, Montana recorded his song Sleepless Night with You, and that was recorded in Billy Stoll's studio in Amarillo and was later mastered by Norman Petty in a studio in Clovis, New Mexico. And he's just been around the West Texas music scene for a long time, but he really never got that break that a lot of people strive for. But I think you're going to really appreciate the guitar playing. Let's check it out. Talk to me about Midnight Queen. What was the inspiration of that song?
Actually, I had been out in Nashville in 1975, and I'd written a lot of love songs that were kind of bordering on pop and country, sort of like the Willie Nelson songs of the 60s.
Yeah.
And I didn't get anybody I got some people interested, but they never quite bubbled up and got recorded by famous people, see?
Yeah.
And so, being an old early rock and roller, when I got back to Plainview, I decided, you know that song about the House of the Rising Sun?
Yeah.
If somebody kind of wrote an answer to that song, it might be pretty cool. So that was my inspiration for writing that.
In the legendary House of the Rising Sun, swings a girl like a pendulum. She swings all time, night and day, for anyone that wants to play. Searches satisfaction for the less than me. Coming into this house down in New Orleans. Told the girl like a pendulum, I swing with her until I won. I thought that no one could shut down the midnight rider. Thought that she was nothing more than a silver dream. But she took me around the world like a satellite, hung me up higher than a paper kite. I was shot down by the midnight queen. And I was shot down by the midnight queen. She turned me on brighter than a lighthouse light, hung me up higher than a paper kite, burned me up faster than a Congress star, knocked me down further than a falling star. I thought that no one could shut down the midnight rider. I thought that she was nothing more than a sailor's dream. But she turned me on brighter than a light, hung me up higher than a paper kite. I was shot down by the midnight queen. I was shot down by the midnight queen. By a hurricane, strapped to the wheels of the moving train. Come to the house of insanity. Come on down to New Orleans. I thought that no one could shut down the midnight rider. Thought that she was nothing more than a silver dream.
tell me about Tom Click. How did that come to be, or what were you thinking about when you did that song?
Well, at that particular time, I'd been doing some classical studying, and I hadn't been playing much lead guitar, but it occurred to me that this was the year 2004, 2005, somewhere in that period of time, that everything I had written up to that point was dated. So I couldn't play anything that people wouldn't say, well, that sounds like something from the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
So I sat down and decided I'd try to use everything I knew to play something that was more up to date. And so that's how Time Click came about.
Yeah, because you were playing some really hot guitar licks and playing chords and on licks on top of the chords, and I think it's a treasure that people need to hear, and so we'll play that right now and let people listen to that.
Where the title come from is that I played it to a Time Click track, and it was just me, two guitars, and so I was thinking, what should I call that? I'll just call it, it's got that distinctive click track in there.
It's a hot song, man. I think guitar players will really appreciate it because, like I say, I've broken it down, and now after you showing me some of how you've done it, I think it's a lost type of playing that you don't really hear people playing like that. And the fact that you're playing it, one guy with that Time Click playing, and you're just tearing it up. Yeah, let's talk about my Untitled Instrument, because when I hear that song, it's that jingle should have been a commercial jingle that it's like one of them jingles that everybody, when they hear it, the whole world knows what it is. I mean, it's that good to me. I mean, it has this feeling, almost like I can almost envision two people dancing out on a beach. Yeah. And what was the inspiration of that song, or how did that come to be?
Well, back in 1995, I had been demoing a lot of my vocals, songs I had written. And so I remembered back that I used to be kind of a noted guitar player back in the 60s around this region, And so I got to thinking, I'll try to write an instrumental that that might be better than average, you know. Might bring me back up as being considered as a guitar player. So that's how I came about writing that song. And I played it for a really good guitar player that was living in Plainview, and I was talking about, well, here's a song I wish I had got it out about 20 years ago. And he said, man, I think it might be a hit today, you know.
Yeah, and even today still.
And so it made me feel good.
Yeah, it's got that timeless feel to it, you know. It's like I say, it just makes me feel like I'm on a beach, you know, with somebody and dancing and the moonlight in the background. And
well, believe it or not, I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but there was a song called "The Girl from Ipanema." It's a vocal, you know, it's not an instrumental, and it had nothing to do with me writing the song, but since you mentioned beach, that's what she was on the beach of Ipanema in that particular song, so it may kind of have that beat. I don't know.
Yeah, it has that kind of a vibe to it.
And but anyway, as I told my brother before, I don't play anything that's particularly hard, but I seem to have an ability to put simple things together and make music, you know.
Yeah.
And so I've known quite a few guitar players that just knocked me down on what they could do because I knew I could never do that.
Yeah.
Like I say, the day that I decided to do what came easy for me, that's when I started to advance as a guitar player.
Yeah. This other song we're going to listen to is Motolo Takeoff.
Yes.
Which tell me about that one.
Well, that song came about when I was trying to make, in a way, I was trying to prove that I could copy some good guitar players. Well, I was trying to copy Tony Mottola, and I failed miserably. But in the process, I kind of wrote a new song.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was called Mottola Takeoff.
Well, I can tell you as a guitar player, and for other guitar players that will see this, and I'll show some of the handiwork that you've done on the guitar part in the video, but this is some complex guitar playing. It really is.
I didn't know it.
It's very complex.
I just broke away from what I was listening to and played what worked for me.
Yeah.
On the chords that was behind me,
Yeah, you're playing chords infused with licks, with extreme chord progressions and changes that I have not seen anybody be able to do that and that quickly. And so you get props for that, because I think guitar players are going to see this and get inspired to get back to some of that kind of playing. Where you're playing. So just so basically you were kind of trying to give us a little bit of flavor of this Mottola guy. What? Where is he from? I hadn't heard of him.
He was popular during the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
Tony Mottola. And I got his album out the other day. I forgot the actual title of the song I was kind of coming across. I listened to it, and it had, my song does not favor it in the least, far as the melody or anything.
Yeah.
And maybe some chord changes, and that's it.
Yeah. But that's what inspires us, is listening to other musicians, and it gives us inspiration to try to break out and do our own thing. And I think you've really done it with this song. What were some of your music inspirations? Because I obviously you can see a lot of the time period where you were in high school and everything. Obviously, there was the Elvis Presley and people like that. But who are some of the maybe two or three that were well known, but maybe two or three that weren't well known? Because what I've found in most of my life is a lot of the people that really inspired me weren't very well known, and that gets lost in this show business thing of people get more into the show business side of it and don't really appreciate the musicianship. And so there's a lot of people that were great musicians and just never really get to Nashville or get recorded on a big label or anything. But who were those for you?
Okay, as far as influences, I like the music of the late 50s up to about mid 60s, and Of course, Elvis, he was a big influence, not just to me, but to the whole world, you know.
Right, right.
The musicians, but as far as personal people that have been a good influence, my brother was a good influence. He 10 years older than me and still playing guitar at 83. And he told me a lot of times that I had a lot of talent, and he didn't have to do that. And of course, you always give credit to your mama that supported you through everything.
Yeah.
All the way, you know. And finally, I will say that when I was around 14 years old in Matador, Texas, there was a horn band called the Hepcats, which it relates to my song Hepcat Gone Wild.
Yeah.
And they were high school boys that had a piano, guitar, drums, a couple of horns, and I was inspired by their music because it was the first good live music I had ever heard.
Yeah.
And I've even went back and tried to track down some of their music, and I can't find it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Robin, it's been good reminiscing with you and jamming with you and listening to you play your music. Appreciate your time today.